August 14, 2016, 3:04 a.m., Tacoma, Washington. A sedan idled under bright canopy lights at a Chevron on Pacific Avenue. Two figures stayed inside. One leaned forward, sorting through something in his lap. 8 blocks away, a porch light burned on Maple Ridge Court while a small dog barked and stopped. By sunrise, police would seal a quiet house and push back neighbors. What happened to Laura Bennett, 53, who lived there alone? 3 years later, a courtroom would claim to answer that question, but not all of it. One detail refuses to line up. Tacoma wakes early. Garbage trucks, buses, the first shift on the port. On Maple Ridge Court, most nights are still. On that Sunday morning, the quiet felt wrong. A neighbor would later recall 2 dull thuds a little after 2. Another remembered a gate latch that never clattered at night. The kitchen light stayed on. No one knew if Laura had visitors. No one saw her at the window. Laura worked with young adults for years, then stepped back. Friends say she kept routines. Groceries on Thursdays. A run of small errands on weekends. She locked the back door out of habit, even when she took the trash out. She hosted rarely. She answered her phone when she could. That week, a few calls went to voicemail. Patrol officers reached Maple Ridge Court just after mid-afternoon. They logged the address. They waited for a supervisor. Evidence technicians began the slow work that always looks the same from the outside. Tape goes up. Cameras come out. Onlookers keep a distance. The first facts sounded simple. A house. No forced entry on the front door. A back gate that did not sit right. A few small items possibly missing. Detectives built their first board that night. Time blocks. Addresses. A printed map with pushpins. One string ran from Maple Ridge Court to Pacific Avenue. Another ran to a parking stub found in the wrong place. The board did not prove anything. It only showed where to look next. In this story, time will matter more than motive. Watch the minutes. Laura Bennett, 53, lived alone on Maple Ridge Court. She spent 15 years in youth outreach for Pierce County, then scaled back in 2015. Friends described her as careful and orderly. She labeled kitchen drawers. She logged bill payments. She set the back door bolt every night at 9:30 p.m. Her son Mark, 26, worked nights in Lacey. Her daughter Claire, 24, lived in Spokane for graduate school. Both called often but visited on alternating weekends. Laura's circle was small and steady. A neighbor across the street held a spare key for emergencies. The ex-husband, David, kept things civil and practical. They texted about repairs, holidays, and their kids. There were no restraining orders. No active disputes. Laura rarely hosted. When she did, she kept it short. She did not drink. She checked her porch camera when it pinged, then archived the clips. The Friday before the incident, August 12, 2016, Laura left a brief voicemail for Mark at 8:41 p.m. She said she had a Saturday appointment to rekey 2 doors. A hardware receipt shows a deadbolt kit purchased at 4:12 p.m. the same day on Pacific Avenue. On Saturday afternoon, she sent Claire a photo of a new porch light. The timestamp reads 2:17 p.m. Nothing about those exchanges suggested concern. There were gaps. The porch camera missed several hours overnight the week before due to a battery fault. A technician email confirms a replacement shipped on August 10th. A city parking citation addressed to Laura's make and model remained unpaid from August 1st. A neighbor later recalled hearing Laura mention a man who asked about tree trimming but did not leave a card. She told the neighbor she declined and shut the door. If you follow these cases and want precise timelines, consider subscribing so you stay with the minute-by-minute record. We will keep the chronology tight and factual. Investigators would later find a written list on Laura's counter. It showed 4 tasks scheduled for Sunday morning. Trash out was underlined. Gate lock check had a question mark. The list ends with call Mark after 10. That call never happened. The voicemail icon on Mark's phone stayed unchanged all day. Someone else knew Laura's routines better than she realized. The last normal day for Laura Bennett started on Saturday, August 13, 2016. At 9:06 a.m., she bought coffee and a newspaper at the Safeway on South 38th Street. The receipt shows a loyalty swipe and cash payment. At 11:22 a.m., her debit card ran at a hardware store on Pacific Avenue for 2 door strike plates. At 1:03 p.m., a neighbor saw her carry a small box from the trunk and wave. She wore running shoes and a gray zip hoodie. At 2:17 p.m., she texted Claire a photo of the new porch light, then set the phone down. By evening, Laura kept routine. At 6:40 p.m., she called David about a slow bathroom drain. The call lasted 5 minutes, 40 seconds. At 7:32 p.m., she messaged Mark that she would be home all night. At 8:58 p.m., the porch camera recorded motion, then died. The technician email suggests the replacement unit had shipped, but not arrived. At 9:27 p.m., a calendar reminder appeared on her laptop, back bolt 9:30. At 9:46 p.m., her router log shows a device disconnect and reconnect, consistent with a brief power flicker. The timeline tightens after midnight. On Sunday, August 14, 2016, at 2:06 a.m., a neighbor on Maple Ridge Court heard two dull thuds against a shared fence. At 2:09 a.m., the same neighbor's dog barked once and went silent. At 2:14 a.m., a camera on Pacific Avenue captured a dark sedan turning toward the neighborhood. The plate was not readable. At 2:22 a.m., another neighbor heard a gate latch click that usually squeaked. That neighbor did not see anyone in the yard. She noticed the kitchen light on when she checked her own back window. Inside the house, Laura's last known activity was simple. A handwritten list on the counter shows trash out, gate lock check, replace strike plate, and call Mark after 10. A pin mark trails off after the third line. Her phone did not ring out. No outgoing messages followed. The back porch light stayed on through the night. By 3:04 a.m., a sedan idled at the Chevron on Pacific Avenue with two people inside. One leaned forward, sorting through something out of sight. The same sedan left 3 minutes later without buying fuel. The gap between 2:06 and 3:07 a.m. will decide this case. News moved fast on Sunday afternoon. A local blog posted that police sealed a house on Maple Ridge Court. Scanner pages repeated the address and added guesses. Some said it looked like a burglary. Some said it looked personal. None of them had the report. By Monday morning, the story spread with clipped phrases and wrong details. A few lines were accurate. Many were not. Detectives worked the inside while that noise built outside. They photographed drawers pulled out in the bedroom. They noted no forced entry at the front door. They noted a back gate that did not sit square. Two kitchen knives were not in their usual rack. A jewelry box was open and light. The porch camera was still dead. The phone on the counter showed missed calls. A rumor started about pills. It did not come from police. It came from a neighbor who said she heard something from someone else. That detail grew as it moved online. Detectives did, in fact, log controlled medication in sealed packaging in an upstairs closet. They documented it, weighted, and secured it. They did not say it proved motive. It was only another fact in a crowded room. Pawn shops within 10 miles received an alert for distinct pieces. One ring had a floral engraving on the inner band. The serial on a small appraisal sleeve would matter later. Patrol units canvassed Pacific Avenue businesses for cameras and receipts. A clerk at a convenience store remembered a sedan stopping but not buying fuel. He said two people stayed inside and fussed with something red. He could not see what it was. Friends pushed back against speculation. They told investigators that Laura avoided drama. She did not host parties. She did not lend cash. She stayed home most nights. They asked why a careful person would leave a gate unlatched. Detectives asked the same question, then wrote down the name of a handyman who had knocked 2 weeks earlier and left no card. The first press briefing stressed caution. Police asked for video between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. on August 14th. They asked for patience on cause and sequence. They did not name a suspect. They wanted the timeline tight before anyone else tried to fill it in. One receipt would soon turn noise into signal. Detectives began with the small inconsistencies. The front door showed no prime marks and a clean strike plate. The bolt aligned with fresh paint, as if recently tested. The back gate leaned outward by half an inch. The latch screw threads were shiny. Someone adjusted it within days. In the kitchen, 2 knives were missing from a 5-slot block. The empty slots collected dust differently. A white line traced where the handles should have been. The bedroom looked ransacked, but only on top. Drawers sat open, yet clothing stacks remained squared. Jewelry trays were pulled, not dumped. A small appraisal sleeve was gone from the top tier. The lower tier still held less valuable pieces. A fine chain lay across the dresser like it was set down, not dropped. The window screens were intact. The sill dust was undisturbed. On the counter, The handwritten list stopped mid-stroke. The pen did not roll. It rested parallel to the paper. A set of house keys sat in a ceramic bowl. The spare was missing from the hook beside it. The bowl contained fobs for the Toyota and a gym tag that Laura never used. The porch camera remained dead. The battery bay held older cells with a May date code. In the hallway, a faint smear ran along the baseboard. Technicians swabbed it and noted the position. It was not visible from standing height. A scuff mark on the back door matched a rubber sole. The tread angle suggested inward movement from the porch. A wastebasket under the sink contained packaging for a new deadbolt. The model matched the Friday receipt. The old cylinder was not found. Bank activity showed no use after 7:32 p.m. on Saturday. The phone never left the house. Router logs showed a brief disconnect at 9:46 p.m., then normal traffic until 11:08 p.m. A neighbor's motion light triggered at 2:21 a.m., then again at 2:22 a.m., 1 minute apart. The Chevron footage confirmed a sedan idling at 3:04 a.m., occupants busy with something red in their laps. No fuel purchase. No entry to the store. The pattern did not fit a stranger rushing through. It fit someone who knew what to take and what to leave. One detail broke the lie. The spare key had moved. Paramedics reached Maple Ridge Court at 3:32 p.m. They entered through the front after officers cleared the rooms. Laura Bennett was located near the rear threshold, inside the back door. The kitchen light was on. A phone sat face down on the counter within view. No signs of forced entry were found at the front or back. The thermostat read 71 degrees. The porch light remained on from the night before. Supervisors called in the county medical examiner and forensic services. Technicians documented the position of Laura's body and the surrounding items. They photographed the doorway, door hardware, and the doormat. A cotton blind cord hung to the right of the back door. It was collected in sections and packaged separately. 2 empty slots in the knife block were noted again. A fine chain on the dresser was bagged. The handwritten list on the counter was secured in a document sleeve. The spare key hook showed a bare nail. No open windows were found. Window screens were seated and intact. The back gate leaned outward, with the latch recently adjusted. A scuff on the inner face of the back door matched a rubber sole. The angle suggested entry from the porch. 2 partial footwear impressions were lifted from the kitchen tile. One was incomplete. The medical examiner performed a field pronouncement at 4:19 p.m. Laura's time of death was listed as undetermined pending autopsy. Examiners documented multiple sharp force injuries and evidence consistent with neck compression. No details were released to the public. Law enforcement restricted disclosures to protect the case. Neighbors who gathered outside were kept behind tape. Detectives canvassed door to door for exterior cameras and ring devices. At the autopsy the next day, the medical examiner recorded the injuries and collected trace. Fingernail clippings were sealed and logged. Blood samples and swabs were preserved for DNA analysis. The cause of death was recorded as sharp force injuries with neck compression contributing. Toxicology was ordered as routine. No immediate alcohol finding was reported. The report noted no defensive wounds that could be confirmed, pending lab work. Detectives built a preliminary scene diagram by 9 p.m. It placed Laura within a narrow window of time between 2 neighborhood noises and the Chevron sighting. One trace on the blind cord would not belong to Laura. The first useful account came from a neighbor 2 doors down. She heard 2 dull thuds at 2:06 a.m., then a single dog bark. At 2:22 a.m., she heard a gate latch click without the usual squeak. She did not see anyone in the yard. She noticed the kitchen light on, which was not common after midnight. She wrote the times in a notebook before she went back to bed. A second neighbor said he saw a dark sedan make a slow turn onto Maple Ridge Court at 2:14 a.m. He watched from a window and did not recognize the vehicle. He did not see it leave. He admitted he had a drink earlier that night. Detectives logged his statement and requested his phone location records for the window. On Pacific Avenue, a Chevron clerk remembered the sedan at 3:04 a.m. 2 people stayed inside and handled a red item. He thought it was a pillowcase or a bag. He said the passenger looked at rings and small bands before placing something in his pocket. He did not see the items clearly. Store cameras captured the car at the pump, but not the interior. Detectives searched the grass strip near the station and found a driver's license sleeve with L. Bennett handwritten on the tag. The license itself was not present. A key ring and a prescription vial labeled Laura Bennett were recovered from a ditch behind a fence line on St. John Street. The vials still contained tablets. Both items were dry despite overnight dew. A parking stub from the Furs Park and Ride turned up under the passenger mat of a vehicle later tied to the case. The timestamp read 1:51 a.m. The stall number was 147. Security video from the lot was requested. The city's retention policy meant only 7 days of footage remained. Back at Laura's house, a small appraisal sleeve was missing from the jewelry box. Her friend provided a photo from a past insurance email. The sleeve number ended in 8041. Pawn alerts were updated to include that suffix. The clerk at a nearby shop remembered a man asking about fast cash on small bands the week before. He refused the sale due to missing documentation. Investigators noted one more detail on the blind cord swab packaging. A second DNA profile existed, and it was not Laura's. Two theories formed and fought each other from the start. One said a stranger slipped in, grabbed what he could, and ran. The other said someone Laura knew walked in, stayed longer, and staged the rest. Detectives tested both against each detail. The house did not show panic theft. Electronics sat untouched. Cheaper jewelry stayed in place. A single appraisal sleeve was missing, not a whole box. Two knives were gone from a 5-slot block, which takes time to notice. A spare key hook stood empty when the neighbor swore she kept one there. Nothing at the front door suggested force. The back gate told a different story. The latch threads shone as if adjusted recently. The door scuff angled inward from the porch. The blinds hung intact except for a cord with trace. The handwritten list on the counter ended midline. The pen lay straight, not dropped. Even the wastebasket showed thought. New deadbolt packaging in, old cylinder not found. Stranger burglary also failed at the Chevron. The sedan idled at 3:04 a.m. with two people inside. They handled a red item, likely a pillowcase or bag. The clerk mentioned rings and bands. No one fueled. No one went inside. If they were running from a random crime, why linger at a lighted pump? Detectives also weighed the rumor about pills. Controlled medication was present and sealed. It was logged and secured, but it did not move the motive closer. A thief chasing pills would take those first. The vial with Laura's name turned up later outside, still closed and dry. That read like disposal, not a target. The handyman lead stayed on the board. So did a short list of male acquaintances who had reason to visit. Phone records did not place any of them at Maple Ridge Court after midnight. One, however, had a gap that matched the window. A different thread pointed toward the park and ride stub with the 1:51 a.m. timestamp. Detectives began to speak of choreography. Adjust a latch. Choose specific items. Leave others to look messy. Move fast, but not too fast. If this was staging, it required someone confident about Laura's habits and the neighborhood's sleep. A single camera on Pacific Avenue would soon reduce the number of possible drivers. The Pacific Avenue traffic camera gave detectives their first clean frame. At 2:14 a.m., a dark sedan turned toward Maple Ridge Court. 2 minutes later, the same camera caught a pickup passing in the opposite lane. Software measured the sedan's wheelbase and placed it near a 2010 to 2014 Toyota Camry. Partial plate characters appeared on 3 frames. The sequence matched 2 possible registrations in Pierce County. One belonged to a woman named Marina Holt. Investigators worked Marina first. Her Camry was registered at an address off South 56th Street. A surveillance team watched the driveway for 2 days. On Tuesday, they saw Marina and a man leave in the Camry. The man wore a hoodie and kept his hands in his pockets. The car stopped at a Chevron on Pacific Avenue at 10:19 p.m. He did not enter the store. He stood at the passenger door and reached inside. Detectives obtained a warrant and seized the Camry that night. Under the passenger floor mat, they found a park and ride stub stamped 1:51 a.m., stall 147. In the trunk, they recovered a red pillowcase with loose fibers and a fine glitter transfer. In the glove box, they found a small appraisal sleeve ending in 8041. The jewelry was not inside. A swab from the pillowcase edge went to the lab. Interviews started the next morning. Marina said she met the man through friends. His first name was Ethan. She claimed he needed a ride on Saturday night. She said he directed her to Maple Ridge Court, then told her to wait on a side street. She said he returned carrying a bag. Marina denied entering the house. She said she did not know Laura Bennett. Detectives traced Ethan through a probation contact. His full name was Ethan Crowley, 36, with prior theft and burglary convictions. He lived with his mother near South Tacoma Way. A search of that residence produced a dresser drawer with women's rings and bands. A floral engraving matched the pawn alert description. The lab reported a mixed DNA profile on the blind cord, with a major contributor not matching Laura. Crowley agreed to talk without counsel, then refused a buccal swab. Detectives collected his discarded coffee cup from the interview room and sealed it. The lab would decide whether the cup and the cord spoke the same name. Pierce County charged Ethan Crowley with first-degree murder and first-degree robbery on August 23, 2016. A judge signed a warrant for a buccal swab. Crowley refused at booking. Prosecutors preserved the interview room coffee cup and moved for a comparison order. Defense filed motions to suppress the cup and the park and ride stub. They argued unlawful seizure and unreliable source. The court held a hearing in October 2016. Detectives described how the cup was abandoned and collected after Crowley left. The judge ruled the cup admissible under the abandonment doctrine. The park and ride stub came from Marina Holt's Camry under a signed warrant. The court found probable cause supported the search. Both items stayed in. The lab produced a report in December 2016. The blind cord showed a mixed DNA profile with a major contributor. The profile from Crowley's buccal swab, obtained after the court order, could not be excluded. The statistic placed the chance of an unrelated person at less than 1 in a billion. Defense sought an evidentiary hearing on mixture statistics and contamination. Chain of custody logs and technician testimony satisfied the judge. Pretrial motions continued through 2017. Defense challenged the Pacific Avenue wheelbase analysis as novel. The state called a traffic systems expert. He explained the measurement method, error rates, and validation studies. The court admitted the analysis for identification support, not as a sole identifier. Defense also targeted the appraisal sleeve. A friend authenticated the sleeve number from an email Laura sent to her insurer. The court allowed it. Marina Holt faced separate charges for rendering criminal assistance and tampering. She posted bond with conditions. Her phone records showed activity near Maple Ridge Court from 1:57 a.m. to 2:40 a.m. on August 14th. A text at 1:28 a.m. read, "Where am I going exactly?" Another at 2:44 a.m. read, "Hurry." Defense said those messages lacked context. Prosecutors said the timestamps matched the route. In 2018, the state offered Crowley a plea to second-degree murder. He rejected it. The court set trial for December 2019. A final motion asked to exclude 2 statements Crowley made about knowing the house. The judge allowed them as admissions. One more camera, not yet public, would place both defendants together after 3 a.m. Jury selection began December 2, 2019, in Tacoma. The court swore 12 jurors and 2 alternates. Opening statements stayed brief. The state promised a minute-by-minute case. The defense warned about assumptions and mixed DNA. Prosecutors built a tight chain. A traffic systems analyst explained how the Pacific Avenue camera estimated wheelbase. He showed the frames at 2:14 a.m. He explained the partial plate match to Marina Holt's Camry. A Chevron attendant testified next. He remembered 2 people at 3:04 a.m. handling a red item. He described rings and bands that flashed in the passenger's hand. He could not see faces but recognized the car color. A detective walked the jury through the search of Marina's Camry. The park and ride stub stamped 1:51 a.m., stall 147. The red pillowcase from the trunk. The appraisal sleeve ending in 8041 from the glove box. A latent print on the sleeve matched no one in Laura's home. It was suitable for comparison, but partial. The lab supervisor presented the blind cord results. The profile showed a major contributor who was not Laura. A statistic placed the chance of a random match at less than 1 in a billion. The profile from Ethan Crowley's buccal swab could not be excluded. The defense pressed on mixture interpretation. The analyst held to the lab protocol and chain of custody logs. The state then introduced new video. A motel camera on South Tacoma Way recorded Marina's Camry at 3:27 a.m. 2 people exited. The passenger carried a red pillowcase. They were together for 9 minutes, then left. The timestamp fit the Chevron sighting and the home timeline. The manager identified Marina from registration records. Crowley's statements came in through a detective. Crowley said he knew the house and had been there before. He claimed he left before anything happened. He denied touching a cord. He denied taking jewelry. The defense called no forensic experts. They argued contamination and coincidence. They suggested Marina acted alone. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, 22 minutes. They returned guilty on first-degree murder and first-degree robbery. The court set sentencing for January. Marina Holt's case moved to a separate jury the following month. Sentencing would reveal what Laura's family kept to themselves until then. Sentencing took place on January 13, 2020, in Tacoma. The judge noted the short deliberation and the structure of the evidence. He entered judgment on first-degree murder and first-degree robbery. The sentence: life in prison under state law. Conditions included no contact orders for Laura Bennett's family. Restitution would be set later after a hearing on losses. Impact statements came next. Mark Bennett stood first. He described phone calls that went to voicemail and a Sunday that never reset. Claire spoke briefly about routine and silence. She asked the court to remember that Laura's life existed outside the file. David kept to the record. He thanked officers for the timeline and asked that Laura's name be used correctly in public notices. The judge told the family they had carried the case with care. Marina Holt faced a separate jury in February 2020. The state argued she waited nearby, drove the Camry, and helped Crowley remove property. They played the motel video from 3:27 a.m. They showed her messages at 1:28 a.m. and 2:44 a.m. Defense said she was frightened and misled. The jury convicted her of rendering criminal assistance and tampering. The court imposed 3 years, with the final 12 months suspended. Conditions included treatment, curfew, and a ban on contact with Crowley. Detectives closed the main case after sentencing. The appraisal sleeve matched a piece documented in Laura's insurance email, but the jewelry itself never surfaced. The old deadbolt cylinder remained missing. The park-and-ride stall had no further value. The lab confirmed that the coffee cup and the blind cord produced the same major profile. The file listed no unknown contributors beyond low-level noise that did not read to a person. Neighbors on Maple Ridge Court held a small gathering in March. They replaced the back gate hardware and added brighter lighting on the lane. A local nonprofit set a scholarship in Laura's name for youth services. The city released a brief statement about cooperation between departments on camera retrieval and retention. The message emphasized small details that hold a timeline together. Cases end in court, but the lists stay. Grocery days, lock checks, the standard minutes that map a life. One item from Laura's house has never been found.